Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. I would like to actually change the song. I would like to speak about very interesting idea that occurred to me, and that's usually what these podcasts are, updates in my vision that I share with the realm. I thought about something very strange, something that could be in some sense a potential truth, and even after being a potential truth, going through the sieves of Socrates, it's like I fathomed a moment in human history that has not yet come. And it would be a moment where the species truly realizes that it is in the middle of nowhere. I say this casually, and there are times where I think about, should I say it, should I not say it? Does the world deserve to be a sweet illusion, or in some sense are we ready for the bitter truth? And the bitter truth of what we consider for humanism is actually a relationship with the empty and the infinite. But the empty first, so emptiness is very crucial. And usually what I'm doing in these episodes is I'm wondering how in emptiness there's movement. When I say an objective species realizes it subjectively doesn't exist, it means in the middle of the human life, 8 billion human beings living, imagine a moment comes where we realize the idea of ourself is as fictional as in some sense as our beliefs and disbeliefs, When we realize what is living here is an internal externalization, a type of intelligence that is actually unconditionally accessing the world before conditionally embodying in it. The mind is free because the mind has no edge. It's not an object that we can, based on a definite edge, define. The mind is the unknown. And it's pretty much how the unknown is alive. And by the way, I am playing music in this episode, and the music should be heard from the background of the talk. So if nobody's hearing music right now, let me know in the chat section to see what's going on. Being human is not a simple thing. In some sense, we do call ourselves human beings, but the complexity of what is the human, the complexity of how multiple systems of intelligence are simultaneously present, the complexity of the micro-macro, a fractal analysis of the realm. There is many ways where we are touching infinity as a species, thinking about it right now. And it is in some sense where we come to the void. You can say infinity has two sides, one side that touches dualism and the other side that touches the void. Right? So anytime we come to emptiness, there's an infinite possibility of phenomena. Another example of this would be like, look at how much room there is in outer space, and imagine the species starts building interstellar, spherical planet-like cities in space, So would take the listener's attention to how from the dream of selfhood and intelligence is awakening. Now, if this intelligence awakens, what are its options in regards to, like, pretty much I'm thinking if everybody realized emptiness was here first and everything else is an overlay, how would the species react? What would the species do? That means imagine you have lived a life and you suddenly realize, wait a minute, this life that is filled with meaning, purpose, and all of that is in a context of emptiness. And so the intelligence is like, what do I do with emptiness? And most human beings, their resolve is that they try to live the best life they can while they're here. That is like a strategy. We attempt our best just to see how far the future generations will go. If we are talking to the present, it is okay for consciousness to, it's not that it's okay, but consciousness can be ignorant. But when we talk about the future, there's a responsibility to try to have as much clarity of it. Try to make the highest quality decisions before we exit and others come into the scenery. What will happen is that knowledge will disappear. The moment human beings truly understand the presence of emptiness. That means it's like many Buddhists want to get enlightened, but many people who want to get enlightened don't understand what that means, don't understand what they are seeking. Enlightenment means your life as an individual completes. That means you have been there, done that in regards to the individual ideological theatrics of kind of like navigating through subjective forms, and eventually the being's like, all right, I experience reality as an object, I experience subjects overlaid upon the reality to change the meaning of the reality. What else is there to experience, right? Sometimes there is no answer. That means in any system where there is a probability of failure, at least this is my methodology, I try to accept the failure as soon as possible. What that means is any system, there's a chance something won't happen. It's as if nothing changes. But if there is a chance that something happens, like, it's as if it's better to express than not express, because the expression can have a varied outcome. When I think about 8 billion human beings and how they will manage to express themselves on this rock, unless there is contextual multiplicity, there is no freedom. We will be pretty much, it will be the Hunger Games until we entertain a multidimensional context as a species. Now, the concept of the singular and multidimensional, they don't have to be separate. What that means is it's like we talk about like our different body parts, organs when it comes to biology, and the anatomy. The body is divided into various systems that are working simultaneously together. That means it's like when we're looking at the nervous system, it's as if we're not looking at the cardiovascular system, yet they are in some sense all connected. Or when a person is in a crowd and the speaker in the crowd says, raise your hands, folks, and everybody raises their hands. That is in some sense, the hand has been an individual segmentation, but there is no such thing as just the hand, right? It's like the hand is connected to the rest of the body. So similarly, there is no such thing as just a human being. Just a humanity. right? It is interconnected. Now, if the definition of humanity is found through a noun, motivation will lead us to hop worlds, so world hopping will occur. This is what we find now. When I sometimes, there's some nights where I just make it a kind of effort for myself to go on YouTube and try to see what people are saying in the world, right? And sometimes when I look at like these motivational videos, all the motivational videos are just trying to take the person to a different picture. Right, so one strategy is find a better picture than you're seeing now and walk towards that. Another strategy I would say, is to actually realize you cannot do anything. The mind is one of the most trickiest phenomenological, trickiest things to pinpoint, to try to come to terms with, Because the mind can be anything to itself, and unless the meditative seeker has a contentment to watch their thoughts, they will identify with their thoughts. I'll give you an example. So let's say in Zen Buddhism, there's like different meditations, but ultimately contexted in emptiness. So imagine you're a Zen disciple back in the day and you've heard of this enlightenment and you're sitting down in this meditation, which is your daily routine as a Zen monk. And as a Zen monk, as you sit there, you're contemplating emptiness, then you suddenly visualize in your inner realms how Buddha might have lived, how Buddha walked. And for a nanosecond, it's as if when the mind becomes quiet, everything else, its content becomes louder, right? This is why shy people, it's not even by their choice, or quiet or silent or observers of systems, receive the most information. What I mean is that a soccer player inside the soccer field does not have access to what the coach from outside the soccer field sees. You know what it is? I'm just pretty much saying it's like two movements and two dimensions are taking place, a physical and non-physical dimension, a sort of mind-body dualism, but it's not of a substance, it's of a dimension, of the caliber of a world. So it's as if two dimensions, it's like two films playing at the same time. Now, if you stop one film, your whole attention goes to the other film. If a person just stops being physically active and just becomes super still and calm, let's say not even calm, just super still, the person doesn't do anything, they're going to notice that they are living life more as a mind. When a person does the opposite, they will realize they're living life as a body. And the challenge of an advanced civilization to even get there is in some sense finding a harmonious balance. That means we don't need to just update society. We need to update, we don't need to just update civilization, but we need to update civilization in a manner where the freedom of a mind moving a body and the freedom of a body howling a mind are there, right? So we got to create such a multidimensional, construct, subjective construct of a civilization that it's like all human beings will feel their own greater heartbeat. What I mean by that is there are certain moments in nature where they are callings, And when I say it's a calling, that means deep down where the moment should go. And if you don't go where your intuition in some sense commands you, or is leading you towards, you in some sense miss out on real karma. There's this incredible app called Clubhouse, and sometimes I go there to listen. And I went into this one room, and this woman was just going on this rant about authenticity, right? And I was just listening to what she was saying, and she said something so profound in the likes of something in the sense of like, how would I say it? She was saying that all the times in your life a person is not authentically themselves, is not sincerely themselves, they have done a disservice to all those people who were meant to actually hear the real life, the really what happened. And it was a very incredible way she had worded it, because what it means is that it's not just like you accumulate and you are successful. It's about the journey as the event of life is taking place. The quality of the journey has to do with, in some sense, what the mind fathoms. The mind visualizes a future and it walks towards it. Like, this is as old as time. So if we suddenly stop one dimension, the other dimension amplifies. If right now we stop talking, using language, advancing communication, we just stop that as a species, we would literally live as bodies more. And we know what that takes us. If we just live as 100% an embodiment, a physical creature, without the context of an unknown intelligence here, it's as if we can never be anything other than an animal. That means if the mind wasn't here, imagine right now there was no one giving a podcast in 2020, and human beings still like savage animals were in the jungle fighting off each other over resources, right? So after some point, the savagery, whether it is in the regular jungle or the concrete jungle, it stops, and human beings realize a better modality of going forth, really, in this life. That's one thing that it's like, even it, what's crazy, sometimes, you see in movies the person, I don't know, you see in like certain dialogues, in certain themes, media themes, where the person's like, I can't change, it's too late for me, or da 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 da, right? But the funny thing about life is, whether we like it or not, it will change us. The circumstances of reality will eventually engage, and the mind will simulate strategy. Now the issue is, if we existentially, through a philosophical through the philosophical world inquiry, right, we suddenly realize, yo, there's nothing here, holy shit, what do we do? This whole time we've lived as a human civilization, what do we do? And that's where there is something cool, where either we accept nothing was ever here and it's all a show, or we realize that this is the meaning. You see, imagine for a moment, there is no, and I'm not trying to step on the toes of other ideologies, but I'm just trying to say that for a moment, imagine there was no afterlife and there was no before life. There was none of that. And it was just life. And imagine for a moment that there was no such thing as death, but there was presence, right? So energy was aware that it's energy, but energy could not be aware of the shape it's in due to its endlessly changing, reality. Something that philosophy provides the person is to actually find a great question. Philosophy's task is to find questions. Science's task is to find answers. I would say, just like how the cells of our body change, after a certain time period, they're replaced constantly. Like as I'm speaking right now, probably the cells, in my body, some of them are leaving, some of them are entering the system, It's like existence could be being replaced all the time. There in Japan, there was a tradition called Shintoism, and in Shinto, they had this next level pantheistic perception that every inanimate object was a vessel for a simultaneous highway of souls. That means there wasn't, in Shintoism, it's not like a person has a soul. Every moment is filled with infinity's movement, right? So it's as if like we're living in a moment where emptiness is living a life, where in some sense oneness, singularity, the singular is living a life, where the dual, right now we're in duality, language is a dualistic technology, so duality is living a life, and then infinity is living a life. Now infinity is a point where humanistic reality doesn't apply. That means infinity is one of the most alien extraterrestrial, or I would say unknown concepts. The fact that there is continuity without end, when we are a creature that only understands life when there's a beginning and an end. There are inner challenges that the species must overcome, and there are outer challenges. The inner challenges, without a loving attitude towards the opportunity of a lifetime, there is no solution. I have come, because I will tell you, I have looked at certain moments through the altered states, and what that means is pretty much this is how intelligence works, where either you change before the thing you're looking at, or the thing you're looking at changes before you can change. If the thing before you can changes, we call that nature. That's the thing about nature. It's moving way before I was born or anyone else was born. Pretty much either we make the world adjust to us or we adjust to the world. My vision is that human beings have no other strategy but to quickly step beyond their inner realms, come to a neutrality, a neutral zone for human thought, and then to begin again. That means emptiness might be scary to the past, but for the future it is the authorization of novelty. That means, well, how did human beings use emptiness? They used emptiness as the space for the new. That means anytime there is emptiness in any moment of one's life, I would recommend go towards doing something new, Honestly, you see it in movies sometimes, it's like the person loses a best friend, but then suddenly, like, they find a dog, out of nowhere, walking up to them in the movie scene or whatever. So what it is like one simulation ends, but it has residue, and that residue is picked up by a new simulation. Because it is very hard. It is one of the hardest things to do, to tell where an object ends. That means if I tell people where is the world, people are gonna be like, the world is in front of you, Mr. Within. What are you talking about? The world is right here. But I'll be like, yes, that's true. But the world we see is how everything in front of us, literally a light beam is hitting it, and it is in some sense becoming an image to us. So the world is actually happening inside the brain. Like, we gotta make up our decision, you know. You have to decide, all right, is the whole world happening through the brain, therefore philosophically implying that we never know what's going on outside of our eyes? Like, you know what I mean? That means we don't know what is out there in the world. We just know how the brain is happening, right? So that's the sort of angle we can take. The other angle is that there never was matter, and this angle, those who go towards spiritualism through their direct experiences, they have an incentive, and those who are religious automatically will have an incentive not to perceive matter as the absolute, you know. Because really, the cause of your worldview will suggest the effect you can get out of it, you know. It's like that saying where they say, you know, every person should ask a question because you never know what kind of answer they find you know. So let's say in the future we have a nihilistic phase in human civilization. Nihilism will be transformed to solipsism. And that solipsism will in some sense be the greatest effort of intelligence before it exits its possibility. That means, honestly, even the fact that we call ourselves human beings is ridiculous. We are literally sculpted by the forces of nature, right? So we cannot identify ourselves even with our own individualism. So it's only for the sake of language. Beyond language, it is very hard to say if there are human beings or there is a being here that is being humans. You know, that is a totally different approach, you know. Sorry guys, this was on mute and I was saying something epic, you know, at least in my own. I was saying something in the sense of, like, we have the theist, And the theist, in some sense, its response to emptiness is the belief in one ultimate source of intelligence. Now, the atheist came after the theist and said, the atheist didn't believe in, for example, the concept of God or the concept of an individual soul being a sort of extension of a collective truth. So the atheist didn't believe in the soul or the God. And now Mr. Within is saying, imagine you saying God is fiction and then you realizing the idea of yourself is an inner realm simulation. This is one of the most shocking things in life. The fact that I am here right now, but 99.9% of the atom is empty. So it's like, what is really here? I'm embarrassed to say that when intelligence is naked, emptiness is alive. There's something about this picture I chose for tonight's episode. That I just felt there will be a moment where greatness, which is another way of saying the ultimate potential of the species, will be tested. And what that means is the future is going to be so strange that it's as if giant unknown forces will cause humanity to unite. That means it's like we're from the inside being like, how do we unite humanity towards a better future? But from the outside, events will take place in nature, and just phenomenology, not just phenomenology, just things will happen in this life that will instantly make us realize, be grateful of our human format, right? Because when the world is multidimensional, it's another way of saying any idea can stand in the void, right? It's a big deal, right? For example, in my personal life, right, you can say a brain is like I use this metaphor often, the brain is like a camera. This camera has recorded footage, and the memory is like the footage of the life that you have consciously recorded in your life, right? So because what we remember is our realities, road, really. So how would I say it? It's as if I'm looking at the future going towards such an unknown state where people are going to be like, no way, we thought we had figured it out as a species, but there is so much more. The questions are heavy. That means right now the species is under attack by very giant, mysterious existential questions, and human beings have to attempt to solve these. That's one thing I think that is the most ridiculous component of our educational system, that so many children around the world are going through their schooling, and they're using paper, which is from trees, and writing assignments, and what happens to those assignments? They become trash, or they become, an ancient relic. So what we need to do is, in some sense, have every person be able to get involved with a spectrum of the world's intensities. That means right now people all over the planet, they have different standards of living, right? And they have even different inner realm contentment, like something messed up that one kind of discovers when they do research into the sales world is that they begin to see that in the less a person has, the easier their psychology is to give. That means if you're a person who you have let's say, a self-worth that is like nothing, but not in a emotional way, just in a conscious way, right? That means everything can be shared, right? Not everything can be shared, but like everything can be said, right? There has to be, you know what it is? It's literally like this pattern of things. It's like a wave, the mind is like, the meaning of life is like a wave. It keeps going up and down, and if we want to just at some point in the middle just pause and say that's the meaning of life, it's like impossible. So based on, I don't know how far vision has come, the strategy towards emptiness will be novelty. The evolution of novelty will be a system coming into existence, this system reaching its epitome, reaching its full capacity. Upon reaching its full capacity, attempting the ultimate expansion. As it attempts the ultimate expansion, it comes to the inconceivable, the untouchable, or the unknown. And any living consciousness that becomes conscious of the unknown, they in some sense attain karmic stability, because the known and the unknown is being how would I say it? It. There's a story by a person ascribed to a holy figure in the Indian tradition. And the story is about Rama, and so enlightenment was the talk back in the day, and Rama was pretty much like a deity in human form. He was pretty much God in human form, or the archetype of the perfect man. And so Rama, what happens is somebody comes up to Rama, Lord Rama, and says, Lord Rama, all these books are telling us to get enlightened, but it's as if we're endlessly reincarnating, so life is about work in some sense, but it's like, why do we have to work? Why do we have to work for truth? Pretty much that's what this person asks Rama, why do we have to work for the ultimate truth? And Rama says, because beings in lesser dimensions than the human format are so unconscious that they can't ask the question. That means lesser dimensions feel so certain of truth that they are automatically excluded, separated from it. That means animals, they don't care about philosophical truth. They don't care about what's actually going on. All the other species are just like, I need to find some food, find some shelter and just continue this, biological algorithm. But when will we attempt to live more than a biological machine, and rather than as a pilot that has arrived to the scene, to the new scene? See, that's where life is, where consciousness, through an acknowledgement of its own totality, after identifying with emptiness, in some sense, let me tell you this: imagine you realized that you found truth, and you understood truth, and that was it. What happens after truth? That means after we discover truth, we're like, all right, everything is true. It's the same as the way we started. Truth is honestly the simplest state of a system before complexity reflects attention into incarnations. So Rama tells this person, beings in lesser dimensions, because they are lost by the desires of their knowledge, they cannot even ask questions of greater mysteries, and he says that beings who are above, that means we have, like in Vedic thought, there's 7 upper worlds and there's 7 lower worlds, and we're right in the middle. We're like the first of the 7 worlds, and the first of the 7 worlds, and there's some beings, there's another earth, like right now we're in an earth, but this earth is not the original earth. There is an original earth, but the original earth is not like inside the earth or something, it is not fiction, it is beyond the language threshold. threshold a state. That means the origin of the universe was dynamic, it wasn't static. So we are right now in the static earth. We are right now in in the effect of truth, right? But when we go towards the causal position of truth, in some sense there is no man and God pre-language. So the idea of ourself is man-made. Everything is pretty much man-made here. Even the concept of man is man-made, which means it's a nullification, right? So ultimately, I would say, this is a very bold statement, but I'm just going to say it for the sake of the content. I feel there is no such thing as the concept of living. There is just attention, journeying, or reflecting off of 4 dimensions. That means some moments you are nothing, some moments you are everything, some moments you are dual. There's a chaotic self and an ordered self in the angle of how the moment appears. And then there's moments when one is infinite, and when I don't know how many people have experienced this sort of infinite self, but if I was to give some sort of poetic imagery for it, you know what it is? It's like, imagine you're inside an ocean, so you're swimming in an ocean, and you don't know this ocean is in some sense an ocean. So you are swimming in truth from the beginning of your life, but we all are. But it's like, as we're swimming in this ocean, it's suddenly like, imagine you were made of, like they say 70% of the body is water, and I don't know, let's say 100% of the body was water while you started swimming in the ocean, right? So in the middle of your strokes, let's say your right and left hand stroke in the ocean, imagine your right arm becomes pure water and the left, and eventually what I'm saying is, it is dissolution of self, and the causal state of reality remains, and that is Brahmaloka, the state where there is no reincarnation. It is the effect of truth that is reincarnating. Its cause cannot, because truth has to be before it is local. Before we wrap truth in language, that is I would say, the secret of the eons. So, an advanced civilization will be like 4 types of human character at the same time. Human characteristics presented at the same time. And there is the known and unknown to all these dimensions. That means there is a known emptiness and there is an unknown emptiness. There is a known singularity, a known oneness, and an unknown oneness. We can say that the known and the unknown are duality, right? And when it comes to infinity, there is a known infinity and an unknown infinity. The known infinity hasn't been reached. It is so ahead of our time, where I would be predicted 800 years from now. 800 years from now, in our kind of light-based history books. There will be human beings who have consciously wielded infinity. I don't know what it would be, but it could be potentially the first wave of technological immortals, the first human beings who transfer their consciousness completely into an immortalized technology, or they use technology to keep themselves immortal, whatever. But the first wave of the immortal technology, when it hits our planet, it's going to cause a philosophical renaissance, or I shouldn't say renaissance, a storm. That means for the first time, philosophers will be able to see the consequence of their philosophies. That means, imagine Socrates had immortal technology back in the day, given to him, rented to him by a time traveler. And so Socrates was alive now, and he had seen how his philosophy had changed through all this time. Because what we really are how we're referring to human intelligence in current society is as a storage container. It's like atoms are holding thoughts, and we're all acting like this is normal. So we are going towards a period in human history where we have lived as a hunter-gatherer tribe, and now this hunter-gatherer tribe is not making sense because the tribe has become conscious of its own design. Anytime you're conscious of something, you can question it. It's like the moment the person sees, for example, the color blue, the person then suddenly says, I like this color, but it's like before the color blue, there was no concept of like, as if the idea of the concept of blue evoked other concepts. And something that's not said is that the mind is a context adjuster. That means what the brain is doing is copy-pasting whatever's happening in the outer realms, manipulating it as an unknown witness, and then through a pre-planned, that means the mind has already lived and then the body follows, right? So the mind is actually happening faster than the body, or we would not know we have bodies. So the consequences of immortality is to become a slave to change, right? And the concept of reincarnation is a suggestion of that, as if something is here, but it is endlessly looping, it's as if trying to climb a hill and falling down, or like a great Greek mythological metaphor would be, for example, that dude in Greek mythology. I don't know if his name is Atlas or his name is Prometheus. I don't know who it is, but it's like this dude who moves this boulder above this mountain, and then an eagle comes and eats his liver, and I think the eagle is like Zeus's punishment, the symbol of Zeus's punishment. And so the liver, he eats his liver and he falls down the mountain, and he has to take the boulder up the mountain again. And what it means is life is strangely resetting before there is a checkpoint. So imagine you're playing a video game, and imagine you're a Buddhist right now playing a video game, right? So you have this concept of reincarnation, but when you're playing this video game, it's as if before you even get to the first checkpoint, right? The video game is resetting to a point where you're like, what is this? I just want to play this game of life, but why does the mind constantly go kind of oscillate, vibrate between the unconscious and the conscious, right? And so what would happen is that we have to make our current moment a checkpoint. And when our current moment becomes a checkpoint, it can have a relationship through time. That means, believe it or not, there is no such thing as reality. There is just where attention is. That means all human psychology is just a relationship of attention and energy that is simultaneous. That means energy is existing, and attention is experiencing. And we are like the intersection point of these two lines. That means that if there's a vertical, horizontal dimension, and just by the nature of how we make sense of our life as a story, right, we cannot avoid duality. So that's the thing, right? So after a person is content with nothing, and then after a person is content with everything, and then a person is content with the division of everything and nothing, which is a duality. The first conscious duality is universal. That means consciousness can be said to be a macro phenomena where we are experiencing a micro effect of it. That means the way we can never know consciousness because it is the whole universe being, right? That kind of makes philosophers kind of, break their pens, but at the same time, the infinite self is here. Infinity, which is dehumanized, is endless geometry. Infinity that is humanized is again the oscillating vision, right? That means whatever talk I give today, I will go to sleep and wake up, and tomorrow will appear to me as a new day. I mean, it's been happening from the beginning of my life, guys. You can say we all have new day syndrome. Just the existential condition is constantly like the light in a room, on, off, on, off, on, off, and you're like, universe, are you in a binary way causing us to become multidimensional? So pretty much, just to conclude this episode, and then I'll be on Discord for those interested for conversation on these topics. I would say there is two approaches. So pretty much, I'm a person that has looked at life, and he's saying like, hey, species, we have two options of either walking towards infinity or walking towards emptiness. Let me say it then. I want to say or being emptiness, but it's like we're either walking towards infinity or emptiness. Now then the question comes, if we choose to walk towards infinity, do we want to walk consciously or unconsciously? Do we want to just roll around in the space-time continuum like a person that doesn't know how to balance like a collective being that doesn't know how to balance his individualism? Or like the imagery is becoming too abstract, but I'm just saying, in 200 years, there will be people on this planet where if they were asked, what are you identifying with, or who are you, the person would say, I am not a who, I am a what, and so it's as if we are identifying with the living event of life. It's a living event. I can't tell you like how all the books that have been written have just been photographs of this endlessly alive moving thing, moving force. I would say that when an objective species realizes it subjectively doesn't exist, and it notices it has been simulating an illusion, so it doesn't feel alone in emptiness. Once the context is contented with, that means you in some sense attained a contentment through confrontation of your realm with how the outer view of the realm is. That means it's like the person has a gift, and they say, where's the gift? Let's say it's Christmas, and they say the gift is under the Christmas tree, right? And so it's as if there is a human existence happening, and we're like, where is this existence? And what it is happening under is a giant question mark. Sometimes I thought like you see certain like, people who are not vegetarian and people who are vegetarian kind of like they fight, and the person who's vegetarian, imagine just this idea, a vegetarian and a non-vegetarian are fighting, and the vegetarian says, you can't eat animals, bro, they got souls in them, and the person's like, you can't, non-vegetarian looks at the vegetarian and says, you can't eat plants, man, they got souls in them too, and so eventually we reach a point where we can't do anything because everything is everything. I have termed this point in this human system as the language threshold. The world is an opportunity for what has never existed to exist. Beyond a humanized relationship, there is nothing we can say or do about it. It is just something we abide with as if it's the truth of the world, as if the greater truths beyond language are like a music orchestra, and you suddenly start hearing one instrument, then another instrument, then another instrument, and then you get blissed out of your individualism. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. The future of the species is as advanced as our vision is, and the aim is not to be, a good or bad person per se, or to be, a right or wrong person. The whole aim is for everybody on this planet, as if like it's a calling of the species, to start exploring meaning from scratch. That means we have been living inside a wheel of karma, but now we have the opportunity to reinvent it. And when we go to reinvent the wheel of karma, we start from scratch. That means emptiness is the lift-off platform of invention. Anyways, thanks for listening, and much blessings and namaste. And I think from this episode on, the episodes will be just accessible to memory. Namaste.